Hi everyone, it's me again, back for some more reading with Mental Wealth Reads. Today we're gonna continue with Success Through Positive Mental Attitude, and luckily today is gonna be kind of a short. This video is gonna be a short one because the chapter itself is about 6 pages, and so we're going to briefly go through that, and I'll talk about it as I normally do, and then it should be kind of interesting. It looks like the next 2 chapters are split up, almost like they wanted to be one chapter, but they split it in half. So this one's called How to Motivate Yourself, and then chapter 10 is going to be How to Motivate Others. So we'll just do this for now. I got a client coming in about 40 minutes, so I got to make this short. But yeah, we'll get right to it. What is motivation? Motivation is that which induces action or determines choice. It is that which provides a motive. A motive is the inner urge only within the individual which incites him to action, such as an instinct, passion, emotion, habit, mood, impulse, desire, or idea. It is the hope or other force which starts an action in an attempt to produce specific results. Motivating yourself and others. When you know principles that can motivate you, you will then know principles that can motivate others. Conversely, when you know principles that can motivate others, you will then know principles that can motivate you. How to motivate yourself is the purpose of this chapter. How to motivate others is the purpose of chapter 10. How to motivate yourself and others with a positive mental attitude is the purpose of Success Through Positive Mental Attitude. In essence, this is a book on motivation. Our purpose in illustrating specific experiences of success and failures of others is to motivate you to desirable action. Now, therefore, to motivate yourself, try to understand principles that motivate others. To motivate others, try to understand principles that motivate you. Establish the habit of motivating yourself with PMA at will, and then you can direct your thoughts, control your emotions, and ordain your destiny. Motivate yourself and others with a magic ingredient. What is the magic ingredient? One man in particular found it. Here is his story. Some years ago, this man, a successful cosmetic manufacturer, retired at the age of 65. Each year thereafter, his friends gave him a birthday party, and on each occasion they asked him to disclose his formula. Year after year, he pleasantly refused. However, on his 75th birthday, his friends, half jokingly and half seriously, once again asked if he would disclose the secret. "You have been so wonderful to me over the years that I now will tell you," he said. "You see, in addition to the formulas used by other cosmeticians, I added the magic ingredient." "What is the magic ingredient?" he was asked. "I never promised a woman that my cosmetics would make her beautiful, but I always gave her hope." Hope is the magic ingredient. Hope is a desire with the expectation of obtaining what is desired and belief of that is. Hope is the desire with the expectation of obtaining what is desired and belief that it is obtainable. A person consciously reacts to that which to him is desirable, believable, and attainable. And he also subconsciously reacts to his inner urge that induces action when environmental suggestion, self-suggestion, or autosuggestion cause the release of the powers of his subconscious mind. His response to suggestion may develop obedience that is direct, neutral, or in reverse action to a specific symbol. In other words, there may be various types and degrees of motivating factors. Every result has a given cause. Your every act is the result of a given cause, your motives. For example, Hope, for example, motivated the cosmetic manufacturer to build a profitable business. Hope also motivated women to buy his cosmetics. Hope will motivate you too. The 10 basic motives which inspire all human action. Every thought you think, every act in which you voluntarily engage, can be traced back to some definite motive or combination of motives. There are 10 basic motives which inspire all thoughts, all voluntary actions. No one ever does anything without having been motivated to do it. When it comes to learning how to motivate yourself for any given purpose, or how to motivate others, you should have a clear understanding of these 10 basic motives. Here they are. The desire 1. 1. The desire for self-preservation. 2. The emotion of love. 3. The emotion of fear. 4. The emotion of sex. 5. The desire for life after death. 6. The desire for freedom of body and mind. 7. The emotion of anger. 8. The emotion of hate. 9. The desire for recognition and self-expression. And 10. The desire for material gain. As you have been reading this chapter, perhaps you felt that it contains food for thought. A good sandwich contains 9/10 bread and 1/10 meat. Unlike a sandwich, this chapter is 9/10 meat. That is the way the authors planned it. We hope you will chew and digest it carefully. As you read success through a positive mental attitude, you can clearly see that negative emotions, feelings, and thoughts are harmful to the individual. But are there times when these are good? Yes, negative emotions, feelings, thoughts, and attitudes are good at the proper time and under the right circumstances. For that which is good for the species of man is good for the individual. It is clear that in the process of evolution, negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, and attitudes protect the individual. In fact, these negatives prevented the species of man from becoming extinct. And these negatives in a person, like the negative forces of a bar magnet, effectively repel the forces of the negative powers of others. This has been. And because it is a universal law, it will continue to be. Now, culture, refinement, and civilization, like man himself, have also evolved from a primitive state. And the more cultured, refined, and civilized society or environment may be, the less need there is for the individual to use these negatives. But in a negative, antagonistic environment, a person with common sense will use these negative forces with PMA to oppose the evil with which he is faced. And because you live in a country with laws designed to bring the greatest good to the greatest number, because the rights of the individual are protected, because you're in a society and environment of culture, refinement, and the highest form of civilization, those negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, and passions which lie dormant within you from your hereditary past are now not necessary to solve the problems with which primitive man could not also otherwise have solved. For he was a law unto himself, and the law of the individual has become subservient to the law of society for his benefit. Now let's clarify these concepts. Let's take anger, hate, and fear as examples. Anger and hate. Righteous indignation against evil is a form of anger and hate. To desire to protect one's nation when attacked by an enemy, or to desire to protect the weak against the criminal attack of the madman to save human life is good. To kill to accomplish this, when necessary, is an example of the worst form of all negative feelings and emotions used to achieve a worthy purpose. In our society, the patriotism of a soldier or the fulfillment of duty by a police officer are virtues. Fear. With every new experience and in every new environment, nature protects you from potential danger by alerting you through some shade of the emotion of fear. You can be assured that the bravest individual will, in a new environment, at first experience an awareness that is a conscious or subconscious feeling of timidity or fear. If he finds that the fears are not beneficial to him, the person with PMA will neutralize an undesirable negative emotion by substituting it with a positive one. Man is the only member of the animal kingdom who, through the function of his conscious mind, can voluntarily control his emotions from within, rather than be forced to do so by external influences. And he alone can deliberately change habits of emotional response. The more civilized, cultured, and refined you are, the more easily you can control your emotions and feelings if you choose to do so. Emotions are controlled through the combination of reason and action. When fears are unwarranted or harmful, they can and should be neutralized. How? While your emotions are not always immediately subject to reason, nonetheless, they are immediately subject to action. For you can use reason to determine the needlessness of the negative emotion and thus motivate yourself to action. You can substitute fear with a positive feeling. How do you do this? One effective means is through self-suggestion. In fact, self-command with a one-word symbol that incorporates what you want to be. Thus, if you are afraid and want to be courageous, give the self-command, be courageous with rapidity several times. Follow this with action. If you want to be courageous, act courageously. How? Use the self-starter, do it now, and then get into action. In the next chapter, you will see how to control your emotions and actions by using self-suggestions. In the meantime, keep your mind on the things you should and do want, and off the things that you shouldn't and don't want. A success formula that always succeeds when applied. Are you among the hundreds of thousands of persons throughout the world who have read Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, or among the tens of thousands who have read Frank Bettger's book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling? If not, we recommend that you read both. These books contain a formula that always succeeds when applied with PMA. In his autobiography, Franklin indicates that he endeavored to help Benjamin Franklin just as the most important living person wants to help you. He wrote, "My intention being to acquire the habit of all these virtues, I judged it would be well not to distract my attention by attempting the whole at once, but to fix it on one of them at a time. And when I should be master of that, then to proceed to another, and so on, until I should have gone through the 13, and as the previous acquisition of some might facilitate the acquisition of certain things, I arranged them with that view." The names of these virtues that Franklin listed, together with the precepts, self-motivators, and self-suggestion he gave each one are: 1. Temperance. Eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. 2. Silence. Speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. 3. Order. Let all your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time. 4. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. 5. Frugality. Make no expense but to do good to others or yourself. That is, waste nothing. 6. Industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. 7. Sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly, and if you speak, speak accordingly. 8. Justice. Wrong none by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. 9. Moderation. Avoid extremes, forbear resenting injuries so much as you think they deserve. 10. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. 11. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at trifles or at accidents, common or unavoidable. 12. Chastity. Rarely use venery but for health or offspring, never to dullness, weakness, or the injury of your own or another's peace or reputation. 13. Humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. Franklin wrote further, conceiving then that agreeably to the advice of Pythagoras in his golden verses, daily examination would be necessary, I contrived the following method for conducting that examination. I made a little book in which allotted a page for each of the virtues. I ruled each page with red ink, so as to have 7 columns, one for each day of the week, marking each column with a letter for the day. I crossed these columns with 13 red lines, marking the beginning of each line with the first letter of one of the virtues, on which line and in its proper column I might mark by a little black spot every fault I found upon examination to have been committed respecting that virtue upon that day. The chart is on the next page. Now it is important to know how to use the formula as it is to know the formula. Here's how to use your knowledge. 1. Concentrate on one principle for an entire week, every day, for the week. Respond by proper action every time an occasion arises. 2. And then start the second week on the second principle or virtue. Let the first be taken over by your subconscious mind. Should an occasion arise when the employment of a previous principle flashes into your conscious mind, use the self-starter, do it now, and then act. Continue to concentrate on one principle at a time each week and leave the others to be executed by the habits established in your subconscious as the occasion arises. When the series is completed, start over again. Thus, at the end of the year, you will have completed the entire cycle 4 times. 4. When you have acquired a desired characteristic, substitute a new principle for a new virtue, attitude, or activity that you may wish to develop. Now you have just read the method Benjamin Franklin used to help Benjamin Franklin. As Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude is a self-help book, it would be wise for you to study Franklin's method and see how you can apply the principles. In the chapter entitled How to Motivate Others, you will see how Frank Bettger raised himself from failure to success by employing Benjamin Franklin's plan. If you decide to start your own plan and don't know exactly what principles to start with, you could begin with the 13 virtues used by Benjamin Franklin, or you may prefer the 17 success principles described in Chapter 2. Let's tell about the first Fuller Brushman. Alfred C. Fuller, the first of the Fuller Brushmen, came from a poor family living in Nova Scotia. Al couldn't seem to hold a job. In fact, during the first 2 years of trying to earn a living, he lost 3 jobs. But then a radical change came into Fuller's life, for he tried selling brushes. Right then, Fuller was motivated. He began to realize that his first 3 jobs were not the kind of work suited to him. He didn't like them. The work didn't come to him naturally, but selling did, and he saw immediately that he would do well as a salesman. He liked his work, so Al conditioned his mind to do the best-selling job in the world. He was terrific. And having succeeded as a salesman, he set a goal in his climb up the ladder of success. It was to go into business for himself. Now this goal fitted nicely with his personality, provided he was in sales. Alfred C. Fuller did quit selling brushes for someone else, and he had more fun than ever before. He manufactured his own brushes in the evening, and then sold them the next day. And when his sales began to mount, he rented a space in an old shed for $11 a month and hired an assistant who made the brushes for him while he concentrated on sales. The end result from the boy who lost his first 3 jobs? The Fuller Brush Company, with thousands of door-to-door salesmen and millions of dollars in annual income. You see, you are more apt to succeed if you do what comes naturally. But there are greater motivating factors than losing a job, making money, or success in business. The desire for self-preservation is the strongest on the list. 7 came through. Captain Edward V. Rickenbacker was one of the most successful and highly esteemed men in the United States. Captain Eddie, as he was affectionately called, is a symbol of faith, integrity, the joy of hard work, and common sense. Those who met him, heard his lectures, or read his book 7 Came Through are themselves inspired by the symbol he represents. The airplane carrying Captain Eddie and his crew fell into the Pacific. No trace of the wreckage or the men could be found the first week, nor the second week. But the world was thrilled with the news that Captain Eddie was saved on the 21st day. Just picture Captain Eddie and his crew on 3 rafts in the Pacific with nothing in sight but the sea and the sky. Picture these men, if you will, suffering from the shock of hitting the water when their plane crash landed, suffering from the heat of the burning sun, hungry, thirsty. Then picture the 3 rafts tied together each morning and evening, with each member of his crew bowing his head in prayer or listening intently as the 23rd Psalm or the verses from Matthew 6:31-34 were read. Therefore take no thought, saying, What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that you have need of all these things. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Now you have the picture, so let's hear directly from Captain Eddie himself as he wrote in his book. As I have already stated, there was no time that I lost faith in our ultimate rescue. But the others did not seem to share this state of mind fully with me. My companions clearly began to think of what lay beyond death and to think of it in terms of their own lives. I say in all truth that at no time did I ever doubt we would be saved. I tried to impart my own philosophy to these men, hoping to stimulate their desire to carry on. It was based upon the simple observation that the longer I have to suffer under trying circumstances, the more certain I was to appreciate my deliverance. This is part of the wisdom that comes to older men. Should you ask us how to motivate yourself, we would list the basic motives. They are repeated here. First, the desire for self-preservation, then the emotions of love, fear, sex, for example. To desire for life after death, and freedom of body and mind would follow. And after that, the emotions of anger and hate, then the desire for recognition and self-expression. And last in the list of the 10 basic motives would be the desire for material wealth. In the following chapter, you will see how any one of these or a combination motivates others. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 9. We have about 20 minutes left until I have a client coming, but something that I think that jumped out at me during this chapter particularly was the idea. Well, first of all, he mentions negative emotions as having been important at some time in history. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in a previous video, how emotions like anxiety or fear or panic, those things were important at some point. They were survival instinct, right? But now that we are much more evolved, we have the things that we need, generally speaking, in comparison to the cavemen. We don't need those as much anymore, right? We don't need to fear being attacked by other people in our own home necessarily. We don't need to fear Indians or mammoths or whatever, right? Whatever the threat would have been back in those days, we don't fear that anymore, right? So the emotions of fear, the emotions of anxiety, those things that were previously meant to motivate us either into action or into flight away from the problem, those things now don't serve as much of a purpose like that. Now, that's not to say that they still can't be used for some reason, right? If you're anxious about something, might be a good motivator to address the problem, to solve the problem, right? If you're anxious about something within a relationship that you have, anxiety can be a motivator to actually address the issue, right? Go and talk to the person about it. Or if you're anxious about something, you can use that anxiety also to, if addressing the problem doesn't work, to leave the situation, right? Generally speaking, your emotions are like your little indicator lights, right? They're going to tell you when something's wrong, and they're going to try to tell you what it is. They obviously can't pinpoint it, but they're going to tell you something, right? When you're sad, it's because something sad has happened, right? The emotional equilibrium is now not your threshold, right? When you're upset, that means something upsetting has happened, right? Something that you don't expect, something that maybe violates some part of your worldview, some sort of thing that you believe is necessary has been taken away, has been violated, has been removed, whatever. When you are grieving something, that means something is lost, right? It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a pet. It can be a job. It can be a relationship. It can just be something as simple as you moved from one house to the other, right? Grief is going to tell you something that had meaning to you is gone, right? And so forth, right? Every negative emotion can be explained in its own way. So I think it's good that they mentioned that. It's good that that's mentioned in this as a part of a chapter about motivating yourself, right? The point is to not ignore those emotions, right? The point is to not, push them deeper in or put them in a box and put the box away, right? The point is to address those emotions, accept them, acknowledge them, and then ask yourself, how can I use this emotion to motivate myself into the appropriate action, right? And that's what we see a lot within, clients that come just to process and work through their mental health, right? Individuals having anxiety when it doesn't seem like they need to, right? And that's kind of where the idea of a disorder comes from, right? The definition of a disorder, generally speaking, is a feeling or an emotion or something, right, that is in excess to the point where it is negatively affecting one or more areas of a person's life, right? So if you have anxiety and it's making it hard for you to sleep, right? that's your personal sphere, right? If you're having anxiety and it's enough to make it difficult to have a the relationship with your partner, your husband, whoever, that is your social sphere, right? Maybe your anxiety is making it hard for you to focus at school, right? So that's school, work, whatever, etc. Right? If it's and that's something we're seeing a lot of, right? We're seeing anxiety, we're seeing depression, we're seeing people with the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Especially coming out of the pandemic, right? We're seeing a lot of that where it is now difficult. Things are still surfacing even, a year after lockdown or 2 years after lockdown. Things are still surfacing within people that are this residual sort of symptomology that isn't going away, right? More so than ever, people are experiencing, like I said, anxiety, depression, trauma, grief. There's so much. There's so many things came out of the pandemic. We even had to add some things to our diagnostic manual that weren't there before, because we're just seeing things that are taking on a new form, right? That none of our other diagnoses seem to fit all the way, right? But there was something wrong, right? So we had to put something in there to address it, right? And so I think it's important to mention that too, because like I said, the point of these emotions, these negative emotions especially, is to motivate you to do something, right? Motivate you to change something. Your body is going to constantly be trying to meet equilibrium, right? That homeostasis, as you can call it, of either it's happiness or contentedness or just a threshold of things being okay, right? And when something is not okay or seems like it's threatening the possibility of being okay, that's when your little indicator lights are going to come on, right? Because your body is trying to signal you, hey, we got to do something about this, right? If this continues, it will harm us over time, or even immediately, right? And so that's the whole point, again, of therapy, of meditation, of the various things that we that are available for people who are experiencing in excess of this, right? Your indicators are always on, or they're always flashing, or there's a number of them, right? It's kind of the same as when you have a car, right? I don't know what most of the indicator lights on my car are about. So when a new one comes on and I don't know what to do about it, and I'm noticing my car isn't running the same way, I'm going to take it to an auto shop, to where someone who's trained to deal with cars is going to be able to help, right? And so that's, again, the whole idea of therapy is taking it to someone who knows what those indicator lights mean and knows how to turn them off, right, and keep them off. Now, another thing that he mentions here in the book is he gives a lot of mention to Benjamin Franklin and his way of dealing with things, right? Now, of course, Benjamin Franklin does also mention the fact that there's a particular importance of follow what he says, something to the effect of like, follow the teachings of Jesus and Socrates, right? What he means basically, it's just his short way of saying, find the main things that you should base your life off of, right, are something structured like religion, right? Doesn't have to be Christianity, could be Buddhism, could be whatever, but find a structure, right? Find a structure and live by that structure. Also, Socrates, pulling in the more philosophical part of humans, because we are philosophical beings, look into them too and follow something philosophical, right? Because that's going to give you a direction. That's going to give you possibly even the foundation of the structure, the religious structure that you choose, or the structure in general that you choose to follow. Because philosophy is going to be a whole lot more about man and existence and what is good, what is bad, how do we categorize people, right? And so that's the idea, right? He's not specifically saying, well, he might be specifically saying, but you know, I don't think, you know, there's something that is important to say about, you know, again, I realize not every one of you viewing this is Christian or Catholic or, you know, Methodist, Baptist, whatever, and that's okay, right? If you are someone who's just trying to find structure in your life, you can, you know, don't take this as me saying you should join a Catholic church tomorrow, right? I'm not gonna say that to you or anybody, right? Because that's something, if you were to want that, that's something that, you know, probably is gonna have to be worked towards, especially if you're coming from a more atheistic view, right? But to that point, there is, again, nothing harmful. In fact, there's a lot of benefits to having a structure like that, right? And it could be piecing things together, right? But having something that you believe is your compass, right? Whether it's, you know, some things from the Catholic Church, some things from the Buddhist religion, something from, you know, I don't know, Hindu religion, right? Could be a mix of things, right? But have something. And I think that's what Franklin is trying to point out, right? Have an idea, have a direction, have a foundation, have something that gives your life meaning no matter what. Because then your decisions from that point on, you'll have something to fall back on, right? Why do I want to do this thing? Because within my belief system, this action will satisfy this thing which I find is important, right? I've counseled a number of people who don't have much of that, right? Whether they're not, and they're not necessarily atheistic or anything, but some of them are, some of them aren't, right? And what has helped them really is establishing this rule system for themselves, right? This, you know what? I may not believe that there's life after death, but I do believe this about the life that we have, right? This is what a person should do, or this is something that is true for me, and no matter what situation. And so I'm going to make that something, you know, that is a foundational part of my belief, right? And we only got a few minutes left, but again, I think the takeaway from here is one of the most important steps to motivating yourself, right, is having a goal, but also having rules to that goal, right? And having a reason for that goal, right? You know, it can be, I think in the earlier chapters it's mentioned like, oh, like so-and-so set a goal for himself to make $100,000 the next year, right? That's a good goal, right? That's not a bad goal. But those goals are even far more, there's more incentive there if you have a reason why, right? It can be so-and-so decided he wanted to make $100,000 in a year so that he could pay off certain loans that he had, and then still have a certain amount of money for the next year, right? Or, you know, he wanted to have $100,000 so he could expand his business, right? Those are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about structure, right? Why did he want to expand his business? Well, expanding his business would generate more money, which would mean that he could continue to expand his business and impact the industry while also providing for his family, right? Things like that, right? So the challenge from this video, or this particular chapter, is, like I said, to find what is meaningful to you, why is it meaningful to you, and making a goal based off of that, right? And then using these elements from Benjamin Franklin's list of 13 things, or the 7 principles of success, whatever you want, but finding, like I said, a number of things, you know, make it 10, right? 5, 10, 15 things that no matter what you do on the way to your goal, these things will be your springboard, right? These things will be what you are basing your actions off of, and what kind of quality you want your actions to have, right? I think that's about all I have time for right now. Thank you for listening again, as always. Hopefully this was meaningful. Let me know again, as I always say, let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or recommendations. Leave those in the comments, and I will respond and do what I can. All right? You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video.